He pressed down on the New Mexico prairie in the summer of 1876, the kind of choking heat that flattened grass and left the air shimmering like hammered copper. The land had been dying for 3 seasons. Wells sank low. Cottonwood leaves turned brittle at the edges. Even the ravens had grown quiet, circling low over ranches that lost more cattle each week. Miriam Booker rode her mule slow along a dry creek, a burlap sack of flour bumping against her hip. Payment for delivering the Barker baby. The mother had lived. The child had lived. The father never once thanked her, just left the sack on the porch steps while avoiding her eyes. Black midwives were needed but never welcomed. Miriam had grown used to the pattern. The horizon burned gold. She tugged her faded scarf lower against the sun. The mule flicked an ear. Miriam heard it then, soft, indistinct, nearly smothered by the wind. A cry. Not injured livestock. Not a bird. A tiny, desperate sound no frontier woman ever mistook. Miriam swung down from the saddle. Her boots slid in loose sand as she followed the cry deeper into the twisted rocks. The ravine was a scar in the earth, the sun pooling at the bottom like molten brass. And at the center of it lay a woman. A woman whose life had drained into the dirt. Her braids, her deerhide leggings, the beaded sash around her waist, Apache. Fresh tracks surrounded her body. Army boots. Several of them. Beside the woman lay 3 tiny bundles wrapped in tanned hide. Triplets. Barely born. Skin still flushed from birth. Hands flexing, grasping at air. Their breaths shallow little gasps fighting to stay alive in the blistering heat. The smallest whimpered, a weak, fading sound. Miriam sank to her knees. She did not touch the mother's wound, the arrowheads of rifle fire told enough. She touched the newborns instead. Warm, but fading. If she rode for help, they would die before she returned. If she brought them to a doctor, he would turn them over to the army. If the army found them, they would be carted to a fort, separated, and likely never see adulthood. If the town found them in her home, they would accuse her of consorting with hostiles, and either take the children or hang her. Her hand hovered above the smallest child. 5 tiny fingers curled around her thumb. There was no choice at all. Just the kind of truth a woman recognized the moment it presented itself. She wrapped the babies in her shawl, lifted them against her chest, and whispered, "Come on now. Don't quit on me." Before she left, she removed the beaded wristband from the mother's arm, turquoise sewn into deer hide in a pattern that shimmered like falling water. Something sacred. Something the children would need one day. The trip back home was slow. The sun sank behind distant mesas as Miriam carried them inside her one-room cabin, bare walls, a narrow bed, herbs hanging in bunches from the rafters. She fed them with drops of goat's milk. She cleaned them. She whispered names, because names anchored souls, and these children had no anchor left in this world. The first boy she called Caden, meaning strong ground. The second she named Leor, for the glimmering light he stared toward even with newborn eyes. The third she named Asha, for hope. And from the moment they were fed, something bound them. When Caden twitched, Leor stirred. When Asha coughed, the other 2 turned their heads, instinctive as breathing. By sunrise, she knew her life had changed forever. Years slipped forward like wind through tumbleweed. The babies grew into children, dark-haired, sharp-eyed, quiet. They ran the prairie barefoot, learned to mix herbs, learned to track lizards and rabbits by the impressions their tails left in the dust. Miriam taught them the English alphabet. She taught them to mend clothes, boil water, avoid soldiers. She taught them everything except the truth. They were 8 the morning Caden asked, "Why don't we look like you?" Miriam's needle paused halfway through a tear in her shirt. The sun cut a hard square of light across the table. "You come," she said carefully. "From Apache people." Asha pressed a hand to the carved box on the shelf. "Your secrets are in here. Some truths," Miriam said, "must wait until you're older." She showed them the beaded wristband for the first time that night. Their small fingers traced the turquoise. Leor whispered, "Our mother wore this." "She did," Miriam answered. "I found you beside her." Where is our father? Caden asked. I don't know. But she had heard whispers. Tales of an Apache scout, a relentless hunter who had spent years searching for his wife and unborn child after a skirmish with soldiers. Some said he left no trail because he expected to find only graves. The children said nothing more that night, but something shifted among them. A quiet hunger for answers began to grow. As they aged, rumor grew with them. Townsfolk would stare when they appeared for supplies, 3 Apache-looking children trailing a black midwife. Folks in frontier towns were terrified of anything they didn't understand. And children who moved like one soul in 3 bodies were the sort of thing they feared most. The drought worsened. Game thinned. Apache raids grew frequent, not from cruelty, but hunger. Soldiers responded harshly, and settlers wanted someone to blame. When the children were 13, the trouble found them directly. They rode into town with dried herbs to trade. Sheriff Halworth stepped into the road, blocking their path. His hand rested on his revolver. You tell me where you got them, the sheriff said to Miriam. Ain't natural. Town wants to know. Leor spoke first, his voice steady. We come from the earth. Sheriff Halworth's jaw clenched. Don't play games with me, boy. They made it home without incident, but Miriam's heart thudded deep and hard. She waited until sundown, then placed the wristband on the table where all 3 could see it. Your father might still live, she said. If he does, he's hunted by soldiers. And he will bring danger with him. Caden leaned forward. Would he want us? Her voice trembled. I don't know. That night, Leor saw a silhouette on the ridge beyond their homestead, a mounted figure, unmoving, watching. When Miriam went out with a lantern, the hill was empty. Tracks remained. Horse prints. Apache moccasin prints. Someone had been watching long enough to know the layout of their cabin. A week later, the rain returned for the first time in years. Long shadows rippled with new life. The creek swelled. Cottonwoods straightened like they'd been holding their breath for a decade. And the man they had unknowingly summoned came with the rain. Asha found him first. She'd gone to check their snares and saw a shape sprawled in the mud beside the creek. At first she thought it was a dead steer. Then she saw the long black hair matted against the copper-colored chest. The deep scars. The blood. She screamed for her brothers. Caden lifted the man's shoulders. Leor wrapped a blanket around him despite the soaking rain. They carried him to the barn. Asha pressed herbs to the bullet wound along his ribs. She worked with a focus that came from some place beyond skill, like she had done it in another life. Miriam rushed in moments later. One look at the man's face made her freeze. Even half dead, his presence filled the room. Towering frame. Cheekbones sharp as bone knives. Eyes closed but fierce beneath the lids. Mama, Asha said, palms blood-soaked. He'll die without help. Miriam set her jaw. Then we'll help him. But you 3 stay out of sight. By lantern glow, Miriam cleaned mud from the man's wounds. She turned his arm and saw a pattern of ritual scars, Apache symbols meaning honor, war, mourning. She knew the name before she spoke it aloud. Stonehawk. The Apache scout whose vengeance had carved fear into every soldier from Tucson to El Paso. The man whose wife had vanished 14 summers earlier. The man these children almost certainly belonged to. Stonehawk drifted in and out of fever. He saw blurred faces around him, children, shadows, memories of his wife. In fever dreams he heard her voice, whispering the names they had chosen for the unborn children. He reached for her, but only found straw. When he finally woke fully, dawn light leaked through barn boards. Asha sat on a stool beside him, hands folded. You live, she said simply. Stonehawk focused on her face, sharp, delicate, familiar. Something in her eyes pulled a breath from his chest. Who are you? His voice was gravel. Asha. You found me? My brothers did. Your brothers. He repeated the word slowly, tasting it. He didn't yet know what it meant. Miriam entered with a bowl of broth. She carried herself straight despite exhaustion. You're awake, she said. He studied her, dark skin, solemn eyes, the carriage of a woman who had lost much and kept going anyway. You saved me. My children did. I only kept you from dying. He tried to sit. Pain lanced through his side. You should rest, she said. Where am I? A homestead near Red Mesa. Far from your people's land. Far from soldiers, too. His gaze flicked to the 3 children clustered in the doorway. He frowned, their stances mirrored, protective. Something tugged inside him. Recognition he didn't understand. Those children, he said quietly. They are not yours. They are now, Miriam said. He closed his eyes. The thought formed, heavy as thunderclouds. But he did not speak it. Not yet. Stonehawk healed slowly. Fever racked him through the nights, muttering in Apache as the children watched from the shadows, absorbing every word whether they understood it or not. Sometimes he whispered to someone who wasn't there. A woman. A name none of them recognized. By the 4th morning, he could sit up without swaying. Miriam came to change his bandages. Her hands were confident, steady. He flinched only once, when her fingers brushed the scar running across his ribs. That one's old, she noted. Taken from a cavalry saber, he said. You've had a hard life. So have you? She looked at him then, really looked. And he looked back, seeing the hardness in the corners of her mouth, the softness she refused to let show. 2 strangers bound by a moment neither had chosen. The children say you found them, he said. Miriam tied off the cloth at his shoulder. I did. Where? A ravine south of Barker Ridge. His breath hitched. He had not heard that name spoken since the day he'd lost everything. When? 14 summers ago. He stiffened, eyes narrowing. 14. Yes. His gaze drifted toward the barn doors where sunlight leaked in. Their mother? Miriam shook her head. He closed his eyes. He didn't move for a long time. The children watched from the shadows, silently communicating in glances. Caden's jaw set in a way that matched Stonehawk's. Leor's fingers drummed patterns only he understood. Asha stood perfectly still, reading everything and saying nothing. Later that evening he spoke. They were newborns, he said. Miriam nodded. 3 of them. Yes. He stared at the dirt floor. A low sound came from the back of his throat, half grief, half disbelief. I had a wife, he said. Her name was Nalin. She carried our children when the soldiers came. Miriam sat on an overturned bucket, hands folded. I'm sorry. His jaw clenched. The soldiers attacked before sunrise. We ran. She ran. I fought them off. When I found her trail, it vanished in the rocks. I searched for days. Weeks. Years. Miriam's voice softened. I found her with them. She had tried to shield them. Stonehawk bowed his head. The barn was silent except for the creaking roof beams and the distant wind stirring the grass. Finally, he asked, And you raised them? I did. You risked your life. Miriam looked toward the children again, 3 dark silhouettes against the dim light. They were alone. And a woman who brings life into the world doesn't turn her back on it. Stonehawk nodded once, slow and heavy. You have my gratitude. Don't thank me, she said. Thank them? They insisted. He turned toward the children again. Caden stood taller. Leor steadied his grip on the barn post. Asha squared her shoulders. Stonehawk saw himself in each gesture. Saw Nalin too. He looked away, overwhelmed. 2 days later, trouble returned. At sunrise, the thunder of hooves shook dust loose from Miriam's rafters. Caden rushed inside. Soldiers, he whispered. Miriam stiffened. Into the cellar. Now. Stonehawk moved to stand, but pain shot up his side. Asha grabbed his arm. You'll reopen the wound. I won't hide behind children. You will, Miriam ordered. If they see you, they'll burn this place to the ground. She shoved open the cellar door. Stone Hawk descended into darkness, breath tight. He listened to the voices above. Captain Harlan. 6 soldiers. Boots scraping the floorboards. Accusation dripping from every word. We're hunting an Apache raider, Harlan barked. Man's wounded. Might be hiding in one of these outbuildings. Miriam answered calmly. Ain't nobody here but me and my children. Those children yours? A soldier sneered. You asking 'cause you're curious or 'cause you're looking for trouble? Miriam shot back. The soldier's knuckles cracked. They look awful old to be yours. Blessings come in all shapes, don't they? A chair scraped. A boot thudded. Lior's voice, sharp, cold, cut through the tension. You got no cause to be here. Captain Harlan laughed. Boy, I can make cause. Silence stretched. Then Boots retreated. The soldiers mounted up. Hooves pounded away. Only when the last echo died did Miriam open the cellar. Stone Hawk emerged slowly, breathing hard. You lied for me, he said. I protected my family. His gaze flicked to the children. You have courage. Caden shrugged. We learn from you. I haven't taught you anything. Asha corrected him quietly. You teach just by being here. It was the first time Stone Hawk didn't look away from the weight of their words. The Apache riders formed a half-circle behind Stone Hawk, their arrival shifting the air itself. The townsmen, who had come eager to burn a woman's home, now fidgeted in their saddles. The horses snorted and stomped, sensing tension thick enough to choke on. Reverend Callum's jaw trembled. You brought heathens to our doorstep? Stone Hawk didn't look back at his people. I did not call them. They followed my trail. The lead Apache, a sinewy man with a hawk feather hanging from his braid, scanned the settlers with the predator's calm. His gaze slid past Miriam, past the children, and locked on Stone Hawk. You still live, he said in Apache. Barely, Stone Hawk replied. Another rider dismounted, a woman this time, her expression sharp enough to cut glass. She pointed toward Miriam's porch. These children, she said. We saw them in a dream. Nalin's dream. Callum jerked in the saddle. What did she just say? Speak English. Miriam's jaw tightened. She said enough? The Apache woman approached the porch slowly. The children stiffened but did not step back. She crouched to eye level with Asha. So it is true, she murmured. 3 souls bound. Asha swallowed. You knew our mother? Yes. The woman touched Asha's cheek with the back of her fingers. Nalin braided my hair the morning she left camp. She told me she dreamed of children born under the same sun. 3. Always 3. Lior lifted his chin. We don't remember her. You remember her in here, the woman said, placing a hand over her own chest. Caden shifted uneasily, glancing between Stone Hawk and the Apache riders. Why are you here? Because your father never stopped searching, the woman said. And because the land has grown too dangerous for our people to wander alone. Callum finally regained his voice. This is blasphemy. Lies. These children ain't Apache. They are my blood, Stone Hawk said. Gasps rippled through the mob. Callum's horse jerked sideways, nearly unseating him. You admit to breeding with. Stone Hawk's glare cut him off. I admit nothing to you. Callum's face purpled. These people, he spat toward Miriam, cannot stay here. This valley belongs to God-fearing Christian settlers. The Apache woman rose slowly. Your God allowed murder at Barker Ridge. Callum froze. The settlers behind him muttered. Some glanced uneasily toward Miriam's homestead. Some shifted away from Callum. A crack in his control. Small but visible. Callum saw it too. His desperation sharpened into something unhinged. Enough! He roared. We are taking the children. They will be placed with good families, proper families. And the rest of you. But he didn't finish the sentence. A rifle clicked behind him. The entire mob turned. A lone figure sat atop a chestnut gelding, Deputy Elias Crow. He wasn't a good man, nor a particularly brave one, but he was a man who knew the difference between justice and a massacre. "Reverend," Elias said, voice cool as creek water, "you ain't got the authority to seize nobody's children." Callum sputtered. "I speak for the Lord." "You speak for your own fear," Elias corrected. Another crack in the mob. Stone Hawk could feel the shift. He stepped forward until his shadow fell over the preacher. "You want the children?" he said. "Take me instead." Callum blinked, stunned. Stone Hawk's voice dropped to a low, lethal rumble. "Kill me, and you end your war. Kill me, and the army and your God will look kindly on you. Kill me, Reverend Callum." The preacher licked his lips. His hand inched toward his pistol. Asha whispered, "He's gonna do it." Caden's hands curled into fists. Lior braced like lightning about to strike. Miriam didn't move. She didn't blink. She simply said, "Stone Hawk." He didn't turn. "Don't sacrifice yourself for their hatred. It isn't for them." He finally looked back at the children. "It's for them." Asha shook her head violently. "No, no, if he kills you, everything dies." "Better me than you," Stone Hawk said. Callum pulled the pistol from his belt with shaking hands. "This ends tonight." He aimed. He fired. The gunshot cracked across the field. A horse screamed. Dust exploded. Lior fell backward on the porch, blood streaking his arm where a bullet grazed him. Miriam lunged to him instantly. Caden's roar split the air. Not a human sound. Something animal. Something ancient. Apache riders surged forward. Settlers panicked. Horses bucked. Callum tried to chamber another round. And Stone Hawk tackled him off his horse. They hit the ground hard, rolling through dirt. Stone Hawk ripped the pistol away and hurled it into the field. Callum grabbed a fallen rifle and swung wildly. Stone Hawk ducked under it, grabbed Callum's wrist, and twisted. A sickening crack. Callum screamed. The mob erupted in chaos. Some settlers fled. Others fired wildly into the Apache riders. The riders scattered, returning fire with precision. This wasn't a battle. It was a storm. And at the center of it stood Miriam. She dragged Lior out of the doorway, pressing cloth to his bleeding arm. "Stay with me," she murmured. "Stay awake." Asha dropped beside him, shaking. Lior, don't close your eyes." "I'm fine," Lior hissed through gritted teeth. "You're bleeding." "I said I'm fine." But his hand trembled. Caden sprinted toward Stone Hawk. A settler raised a rifle to shoot him. And an Apache warrior slammed into the man, knocking the gun aside. Miriam was up first, moving through the homestead with practiced quiet. She brewed willow bark tea for Lior's pain. She baked cornbread for the Apache families. She prepared poultices for bruises and cuts. Stone Hawk stood on the ridge above the homestead, watching the sunrise with the silent intensity of a man who had slept beside danger for so many years he no longer knew how to rest. He scanned the land. The tracks. The sky. Every detail mattered. This was the first morning in 14 years he had woken without a weapon in hand. He wasn't sure whether it made him uneasy or relieved. Below him, Caden helped Lior out of the cabin, supporting him with an arm under the shoulder. Lior hissed as his wound pulled. "I said I can walk," Lior muttered. "And I said you don't need to prove anything to anyone," Caden answered. Asha followed behind, carrying a wool blanket. She wrapped it around Lior's shoulders without asking. Stone Hawk watched them move, 3 bodies acting in a harmony they did not understand. A unity he and Nalan had dreamed might be possible. Miriam emerged from the cabin carrying steaming bowls. "Eat," she said to the children. "Then work." "Work?" Lior protested. "I'm wounded." "You've still got one good arm," Miriam replied. Caden snorted. Asha hid a smile. Then Miriam turned toward the ridge. "Stone Hawk," she called. He didn't move at first. Only when she lifted a second bowl of food did he descend the slope. She handed him the bowl wordlessly. He accepted it wordlessly. They sat beside each other on a fallen log, a few inches of air holding back an unspoken question neither dared approach yet. He glanced at her as she ate. Strong jaw. Steady hands. Tired eyes. Fire beneath calm. She glanced at him. Scars. Muscles coiled like rope. Sadness lodged deep beneath every breath. Two lives carved by loss meeting at an unexpected crossroad. Aisha watched them from the porch. Caden nudged her. Quit staring. She ignored him. By noon, the Apache riders had erected a temporary camp behind the homestead, lean-tos, fires, drying racks for meat. Children darted between the lodges. Elders sat cross-legged, whispering memories of families lost. Stonehawk walked among them, murmuring greetings. Some embraced him. Some scolded him for his recklessness. All looked at the three teenagers with varying mixtures of shock, awe, and recognition. The Apache woman from the night before approached Miriam. You raised them well. Miriam folded her arms. I raised them alive. That's all I managed. No, the woman said. You raised them whole. Miriam's jaw tightened. She did not want praise. Praise made her vulnerable. Praise acknowledged how alone she had been for 14 years. Meanwhile, the triplets moved through the Apache camp in perfectly synchronized uncertainty. A young boy around their age studied them curiously. You look like us, he said to Caden. Caden shrugged. We're not. You are, the boy insisted. But also not. Lyra smirked. That's about right. Asha knelt beside an elder woman mixing herbs, mirroring her movements instinctively. The elder paused. You've done this before. No, Asha murmured. But it feels familiar. The elder placed a handful of sage in Asha's palm. Memory travels through blood. Stonehawk overheard. His breath caught. He didn't interrupt. He simply watched his children find pieces of themselves in a culture they had never been taught yet somehow remembered. Later, when the sun was high, Miriam gathered the triplets for chores. Fetch water. Chop firewood, carefully. Leor uses the blunt axe for now. And stay within sight. Stonehawk didn't move from where he stood. Miriam raised a brow. You staring at me or supervising them? Both, he said simply. Miriam blinked. He wasn't joking. And something in her chest shifted. The peace did not last long. Just past midday, a dust cloud rose on the horizon, riders approaching fast and heavy. Caden spotted them first. Mama! Miriam's head snapped up. How many? 6, maybe 7. Stonehawk joined him. His eyes narrowed. Not settlers. Not Apache. Cavalry. The Apache riders armed themselves. Elders pushed children inside tents. The triplets stood back to back without thinking. Miriam grabbed her rifle. Everyone inside. Now. No, Stonehawk said. We stay where they can see us. If we hide, they'll assume guilt and fire first. You think they won't shoot you on sight? Miriam snapped. Then they shoot me. But not the children. Asha tugged his sleeve. Don't say that. He only placed a hand on her head briefly, gentle in a way that almost broke Miriam's composure. The riders slowed as they approached. Their leader raised a hand. Captain Rowan. A man known for equal parts arrogance and incompetence. He dismounted, boots sinking into the dirt. Stonehawk, he said, spitting the name like venom. Stonehawk didn't blink. Rowan. Rowan's gaze swept the camp, lingering on the Apache families, then on Miriam, then settling on the 3 teenagers. There it is, he said coldly. Your little tribe. Miriam stiffened. State your business. Rowan smirked. You're bold for a woman with no rifle aimed at me. My rifle's closer than you think, she replied. He laughed. Stonehawk did not. Rowan turned toward the Apache riders. Washington's orders. The last free Apache bands are to be relocated to Fort Laramie by next month. You're trespassing on federal land. This land was never yours, the Apache woman said. Rowan ignored her. Then he pointed at the children. Those three, hand them over. A shockwave went through the group. Miriam's voice dropped. Say that again. They're Apache blood. They're government property. Stonehawk lunged forward, but Miriam grabbed his arm before he could strike. Rowan smirked at the reaction. Mixed bloods belong in custody. We'll place them in an army orphanage. Train the boys to be scouts. Girls go into domestic service. Asha's breath hitched. Caden's fists clenched. Leor stepped in front of his siblings. Stonehawk's eyes went black with rage. You touch them, he said, and I will bury you where you stand. Rowan lifted his chin. Threats from a man with no tribe? I have 3, Stonehawk said. Not for long. Rowan gestured. 4 soldiers moved toward the children. Stonehawk stepped into their path. You will not take my children, Rowan sneered. Your children? You can't even protect your own wife. The world went still. Even the wind stopped. Miriam whispered, Stonehawk, don't. But grief turned to something molten inside him. Stonehawk lunged. Rowan's men drew weapons. Apache riders leapt from their horses. Miriam raised her rifle. The children braced themselves to fight. It would have turned into a massacre. Except a single gunshot cracked through the tension. Not aimed at anyone. Just fired into the air. Deputy Elias Crow rode in hard, dust flying from his horse's hooves. Hold your damn fire! He shouted. Rowan turned furious. Crow, this is army business. Crow shoved his horse between them. And this is county land. You got no jurisdiction unless the sheriff grants it. Rowan glared. The sheriff sides with me. He's drunk in a saloon 20 miles east, Crow said. I'm acting lawman until he sobers up. And I say you don't take anyone from this valley today. Rowan stepped toward him. You can't stop me. Crow leaned forward in the saddle. I can shoot your horse out from under you. That'll stop you for a spell. A few soldiers exchanged glances. Rowan realized this wasn't the fight he wanted. Not yet. He spat in the dirt. You have 1 week. When I return, that homestead is empty, and these savages are gone. You return before that, Stonehawk said, and you leave in pieces. Rowan smirked at him, then turned his horse. Tick-tock, Hawk. Tick-tock, Miriam. The clock's running out. The cavalry rode off. Silence fell. Deep. Heavy. Terrifying. Leor slumped to the ground, shaking. Caden dropped beside him, gripping his shoulder. Asha rushed to them. Miriam lowered her rifle, hands trembling for the first time in years. Stonehawk stared at the horizon where Rowan disappeared. He knew when a war was coming. He could smell it in the dust. Night fell heavy over the valley. Apache fires crackled. Children slept. Winds shifted. Miriam found Stonehawk sitting alone at the edge of the creek, staring at the reflection of the moon. You didn't kill him, she said quietly. I wanted to. I know. He threatened them. He threatened all of you. And you didn't kill him, Miriam repeated firmly. Why? He asked. You tell me. Stonehawk looked at the water. Its surface rippled, distorting the moon. Because you asked me not to, he admitted. Miriam sat beside him, knees brushing his. Rowan will return with more men, Stonehawk said. With cannons. With orders from Washington. I know. You and the children must leave. No. Miriam. No. He turned to her. Truly turned. As though seeing her for the first time not as the woman who saved his children but as something else entirely. You think you can stand against the U.S. Army? No, she said calmly. I think we can. He exhaled loudly. You speak like Nalin. Is that a compliment? It is confusing. She smiled faintly. Good. He shook his head, lips threatening a rare smile. You are stubborn. And you're afraid. Yes. Good, Miriam said. Fear keeps a person alive. Asha's voice drifted from behind them. Are we running? She asked. Both adults turned. Caden and Leor stood with her. Stonehawk hesitated. Miriam didn't. No, she said. We're not running. Then what do we do? Leor asked quietly. Miriam looked at Stonehawk. He looked back. The answer rose between them like a storm forming over the mesa. We prepare, he said. And we unite, Miriam added. For the first time, Asha whispered. We don't stand alone. Stonehawk placed a hand on his daughter's shoulder. This valley is ours now, he said. And anyone who comes to take it. He looked toward the horizon where cavalry dust still drifted faintly. We'll find a war they did not expect. Dawn arrived with a strange hush across the valley, the kind of quiet that comes before a hunt or a battle. The Apache camp stirred slowly, muted voices, the soft thud of feet on grass, the low rumble of a pot warming over fire. Miriam's homestead felt different too, as if the wood itself sensed the danger drawing closer by the day. The triplets were already awake, tension woven into their muscles. Leor's wounded arm rested in a sling, but he refused to stay still. Asha ground herbs for poultices. Caden paced, scanning the horizon every few minutes. Miriam set a pot of beans on the fire. She moved with deliberate calm, but her eyes betrayed the same unease threaded through the valley. Stonehawk returned from scouting the ridge. Dust clung to his boots. His face was carved from stone, unreadable. How many? Miriam asked. Rowan rides to Santa Fe, Stonehawk said. He'll gather more soldiers, more guns. Men who don't care about laws. Did he see you? No. But he'll return with twice the force. Miriam exhaled sharply. Then we've got less than a week. Stonehawk turned to the Apache elders gathered near the fire. We cannot stay in one place. Rowan will hit fast and wide. He'll bring cannon wagons, sharpshooters, scouts. We need defenses across the valley, not just here. An elder named Entel nodded. We will build blinds in the ravine. Spike pits on the canyon trail. Smoke signals ready. Another elder lifted a woven basket. We still have the flash powder your woman used to trade for. It blinds horses. Stonehawk's brow lifted. Useful. Miriam crossed her arms. All of that is good. But we also need settlers. Caden blinked. Settlers? Why? Because Rowan wants a battle, Miriam said. But Washington fears public outcry. If settlers stand with us, people they consider their own, Rowan won't be free to kill everyone. You want to ask settlers for help? Stonehawk asked. You did it last night, she said. Elias Crow helped. Others watched. That was desperation, not alliance. Miriam shook her head. Kindness is remembered longer than you think. Stonehawk looked toward the children. And what of you three? You stay close to Miriam. You do not leave the homestead. Caden scowled. We're not hiding. You are not hiding, Stonehawk said. You're protecting the one place Rowan will try to strike first. Asha's hand tightened on the edge of her skirt. Why us? Stonehawk's gaze softened. Because he knows taking you hurts me more than killing me. None of them spoke after that. The next 2 days blurred into work. Apache riders constructed lookout points at high ground overlooking the valley. Settlers began arriving in quiet trickles, families Miriam had helped through sickness, injury, childbirth. They brought what they could, barrels, tools, meat, even scrap metal for makeshift barricades. The Wilsons brought lumber. The Archers brought 3 crates of nails. The Mackenzies brought food for a week. Each arrival made Stonehawk more uneasy. These people risked their lives, he told Miriam. They'd risk more if you weren't here, she replied. Meaning? Meaning your presence forces them to choose a side, she said. And choosing you is choosing a different world. A dangerous one. Stonehawk glanced at the settlers working beside Apache families. This is not a world anyone chooses. Yet here they are, Miriam said. On the 3rd morning, Deputy Crow returned. This time, he didn't ride alone. Behind him rode a young woman in a clean cavalry coat, Lieutenant Clara Danvers. Her posture was straight, her hair braided tight against her collar. She looked like the kind of person who believed rules existed for a reason. Crow dismounted. Miriam. Hawk. This here is Lieutenant Danvers. She don't agree with Rowan's methods. Danvers dismounted as well. She inspected the valley, Apache lodges, settlers working side by side, the triplets splitting wood, and something shifted slightly in her expression, as if she hadn't expected what she saw. I requested reassignment to Captain Rowan's patrol, she said. He denied it. That told me he's hiding something. He's hiding the truth, Miriam said. Always has. Danvers nodded. I heard rumors in Santa Fe. Rowan wants to wipe this valley clean. He's using the new relocation order as pretext. But what he told his superiors is not what he intends to do. Stonehawk stiffened. What does he intend? Extinction, she said plainly. Of all Apache in this valley. Of collaborators. Of anyone who stands with you. A thunderclap of quiet fell. Crow leaned forward. She saw the orders, Hawk. The real ones. Danvers reached into her coat. She pulled out a folded document. Stonehawk's hand brushed the hilt of his knife. Is that what I think it is? A duplicated field order, Danvers said. Rowan forged an authorization to attack on sight. The original order from Washington only demanded relocation, not violence. Miriam's voice grew cold. So he plans to murder us under the guise of law. Yes, Danvers said. I came to warn you. Stonehawk stepped close to her. His shadow fell across her boots. You risk your life coming here. Danvers swallowed. I know. Why? He asked. She hesitated. Then she turned her gaze toward Miriam. My mother was a midwife, Danvers said. She taught me that the world doesn't survive on cruelty. It survives on the women who choose compassion when cruelty is easier. Miriam blinked. Danvers continued. Rowan is cruel. Someone needs to stop him. Stonehawk nodded slowly. You want to help us? Yes. He glanced at Miriam. Miriam only gave a single, decisive nod. She stays, Miriam said. Danvers released a tight breath. Crow smirked. Told you Miriam sees sense. Stonehawk's jaw tightened. If she betrays us. I won't, Danvers said. We'll know, Asha whispered behind Miriam. Danvers turned slightly startled. Leor leaned against the cabin, watching her. Caden stood near the well, arms crossed. Asha didn't blink. Danvers lowered her voice. They're intimidating. Stonehawk exhaled. You don't know the half of it. That evening, Stonehawk taught the triplets how to move through tall grass without breaking the tips. How to lay traps that startled horses without harming them. How to communicate silently using hand signs. Rowan will come at night, Stonehawk said. Cowards always attack in the dark. Leor's face twisted. Cowards or men who think darkness hides their sins? Both, Stonehawk said. Caden practiced stepping where Stonehawk stepped, matching each movement perfectly. Asha practiced kneeling silently behind brush, invisible. You three, Stonehawk said. Listen to Miriam. Do not separate. Do not pursue enemies alone. Asha frowned. Why not? Because you are not warriors. Caden scoffed. You're wrong. Stonehawk grabbed Caden's wrist so fast the boy didn't see it coming. You think being angry makes you a warrior? Stonehawk said. It makes you dead. Caden swallowed. Asha held her breath. Leor's eyes narrowed. Stonehawk released Caden's wrist gently. You are not warriors yet, he said. You are children learning how to become something else. But that something is not decided by battle. It's decided by purpose. Asha whispered. What's our purpose? Stonehawk looked at her, really looked at her. To survive, he said quietly. And to show the world a different way. After dusk, Miriam stood alone beside the cabin, staring at the sky. Stars glittered sharp as ice. The air cooled. Stonehawk approached. "You haven't rested in days," he said. "Neither have you." He stopped beside her. For a moment, they were just two silhouettes etched against the horizon waiting to erupt. "Miriam," he said quietly, "if Rowan comes with full force, you and the children must escape north. There's a canyon trail. Hard to ride. Easy to defend. No. You don't understand." "No," she repeated, firmer. "If you die and we run, Rowan still wins." Stonehawk clenched his jaw. "I won't let him take you." "You don't get to decide that," Miriam said. He stared at her, rage, fear, grief, something else, all clashing behind his eyes. Then he exhaled. 14 years, he said. "I believed I was the last piece of my family. That the past had swallowed every trace of them." "You weren't the last," Miriam said. "Just the most lost." He looked down. His hands covered in scars. His arms, carved by 14 years of grief. His voice broke. "I don't know how to be a father." "Neither did mine," Miriam said. "He learned." "How?" "By staying." Stonehawk's breath trembled. Asha's voice drifted from behind them. "Mama? Papa? You coming inside?" Miriam and Stonehawk froze. Not Mama. Not Miriam. Mama. Not Stonehawk. Papa. Something broke open inside him. He lowered his head. And whispered, "Yes." The next morning, a horn blew from the ridge. 3 short blasts. "Danger." Stonehawk's hand went to his knife instantly. Danvers raced from her tent. Crows sprinted from the barn. Miriam barked orders at anyone within earshot. "Get the children inside!" "Asha, grab the herbs." "Leor, go slow with that arm." "Caden, help him!" The Apache riders mounted up, their horses restless. Stonehawk's eyes narrowed at the ridge. A single scout raced toward them. When he reached the edge of the homestead, he slid from his horse. His voice shook. "Rowan isn't coming in a week." Miriam's eyes widened. "What?" "He's coming now." Stonehawk's blood turned colder than river water. "How many?" he demanded. "Too many. Define too many." The scout swallowed. 50 cavalry. Silence. Then, "Cannons." Miriam's breath caught. "And," the scout choked, 3 wagons of bounty hunters." Stonehawk closed his eyes. Miriam whispered, "When?" "In 1 hour." Caden grabbed Leor's arm despite the wound. "We can still prepare." "No," Stonehawk said. "It's too late." Asha's voice quivered. "What do we do?" Stonehawk looked at Miriam. She looked back. There was only one answer. "We stand." The valley changed in an instant. All morning, it had been a place of hard work and uneasy hope. But with the scout's warning, the air shifted, tightened, became something brittle and electric. A place waiting to be shattered. Apache riders darted across the fields, shouting orders. Settlers grabbed their children and ran for shelter in the homestead cellar. Smoke curled from hastily lit fires. Horses stamped and snorted. Miriam moved through it all like a force of nature, sharp, fast, unwavering. "Barricade the west side!" she called. "Crow, get those crates moved!" "Danvers, with me!" Asha ran beside her, clutching a bundle of herbs and dried roots. Caden helped Leor descend the porch steps. Leor's face was pale, but his teeth were clenched with determination. "I can fight," he insisted. "You can barely lift your arm." Caden snapped. Asha skidded to them. "Stop arguing! We don't have time." Stonehawk strode toward them, face carved from thunder. "All 3 of you inside," he said. "No," Caden fired back. "We stay with you." Stonehawk grabbed him by the front of his shirt, firm, not cruel. "You stay alive. That's your fight." Caden didn't move. Stonehawk leaned close, voice low and fierce. If you die, your mother's sacrifice dies with you. The words cut through the boy like a blade through cloth. Caden swallowed hard, then nodded. Stonehawk released him. Inside, he repeated. The children obeyed, walking backward, eyes never leaving him. The Apache elders formed a defensive ring around the homestead. Antel directed the riders. 2 on the ridge. 2 at the creek. 3 with the flash powder at the canyon mouth. Danvers helped drag barrels into position. She jammed rifles into gaps in the logs. Crow, set firing lines here. And here. Stack ammunition by the steps. Crow barked back. On it. And somebody get me a damn hammer. Stonehawk climbed onto the porch roof for a vantage point. The wind lifted his hair. His shadow stretched long and sharp. Miriam climbed beside him. You're not dying today, she said without looking at him. Neither are you, he replied. Good, she said. Then we agree. He glanced at her fully. You're brave. She shrugged. No. I'm tired of being chased. Below them, Lior squeezed Asha's hand. Caden stood at the window, rifle ready. The triplets exchanged a silent conversation, one of tension, fear, and something else. Resolve. The first sign of Rowan's approach was the rumble. Distant at first, like thunder behind mountains, but growing louder, steadier, until the earth itself vibrated. Then came the dust. Thick clouds rising over the ridge, rolling forward like a sandstorm. Settlers inside the cellar began to pray. The Apache tightened their grips on their weapons. Stonehawk stood tall, scanning the horizon. Miriam clenched her jaw. Here they come. The riders appeared over the ridge in a long, dark line, cavalry uniforms gleaming, sabers flashing, rifles slung across saddles. Behind them, 3 wagons rattled forward, bounty hunters leaning from the sides, rifles ready. And behind those, 2 field cannons. Asha gasped. They brought cannons? Lior cursed under his breath. We're dead. We are not dead, Miriam snapped. Crow spat in the dirt. Rowan's lost his damn mind. Danvers' eyes hardened. He's trying to make an example. Caden whispered. Mama. Papa. Stonehawk stepped to the edge of the roof. When Rowan finally came into view, he sat tall on a black stallion, uniform immaculate, face twisted with righteous satisfaction. He raised his hand. The riders halted in perfect formation. Rowan's voice carried across the valley. Miriam Booker! Stonehawk! You have defied federal orders. You harbor fugitives. You harbor murderers. And you harbor abominations that should never have drawn breath. Miriam stepped forward. They are children. They are weapons, Rowan snapped. Stonehawk spoke next, voice even, strong. Leave. Now. You don't have the authority to do this. Rowan grinned. I do. Danvers stepped up beside Stonehawk, lifting the forged order. Captain Rowan forged field orders to justify violence, she shouted. These do not reflect Washington's directives. Rowan didn't blink. He simply said, Shoot her. A bounty hunter fired. Danvers jerked as a bullet tore across her shoulder. She fell to one knee. Crow dragged her behind a barrel. Miriam shouted, Hold your fire! But the decision was no longer theirs. Because Rowan raised his saber. Cannon crews, ready! The triplets held their breath. Stonehawk! Rowan roared. This is your last chance. Stonehawk straightened, shoulders broad and unyielding. You will not take my family. Rowan's grin widened, teeth gleaming madly in the sun. So be it. His saber dropped. Fire! The cannonball screamed across the valley. The ground shook. A crater erupted 10 feet from the homestead, spraying dirt and wood. Asha screamed. Miriam grabbed her. You 3 down! The second cannon fired. This one sailed closer, too close. Before it hit, Stonehawk leapt from the roof, tackling Miriam to the ground. The explosion thundered behind them. Smoke filled the air. Apache riders returned fire in coordinated bursts. Settlers joined them. Rifles cracked. Horses screamed. Bounty hunters advanced. Chaos exploded. The battle had begun. Stonehawk helped Miriam to her feet. "Are you hurt?" "No." She grabbed her rifle. "But you will be if you push me that hard again." He almost smiled. Almost. Asha dragged Leor behind cover. Caden fired through the window gap at a bounty hunter charging from the creek's side. Apache riders split into two flanks, one drawing cavalry fire, the other circling behind the ridge to cut off Rowan's advance. Danvers, bleeding from the shoulder, shouted orders while firing one-handed. "Reload! Keep low! Aim for the riders pulling the cannon wagons!" Crow cursed loudly. "They got too many! We gotta break one of those cannons!" Stonehawk vaulted a fallen barrel, sprinting across open ground like a fox dodging arrows. Miriam's heart leapt into her throat. He was heading straight toward the cannon crews. "Stonehawk!" she shouted. He didn't slow. He slid behind a boulder as a bullet chipped the rock near his head. The cannon crew reloaded. He timed the moment perfectly. Just as they lifted the ramrod, Stonehawk rose through a clay jar. Flashed powder. The jar shattered on the cannon wheel. A blinding burst of white light detonated. The horses bucked. The crew reeled backward screaming. Apache riders cheered. Stonehawk ducked as a rifle cracked behind him. He twisted, knocked the bounty hunter flat with a single blow, and kicked the man's weapon away. Miriam fired twice from the porch, dropping another attacker closing in on him. Their eyes met across the battlefield. It wasn't romance. It wasn't survival. It was recognition. Two forces fighting the same war. Inside the cabin, the triplets crouched low. Lear breathed fast. "Caden, ammo!" Caden shoved a handful of bullets toward him. "Stay low!" Asha peeked through a crack in the wall. "They're flanking us." Leor gritted his teeth. "We don't let them." Caden nodded once. Asha whispered, "What do we do?" Leor didn't hesitate. "We move together." They burst from the cabin, staying low, moving fast, weaving between barrels and crates as if guided by the same instinct. Asha slid beside Miriam to help reload. Caden sprinted to the barn where an injured Apache rider shouted for aid. Leor took up a dropped revolver, holding it awkwardly because of his bandaged arm, but aiming true enough to force two bounty hunters back behind a wagon. Miriam shouted at them. "I told you to stay inside!" Caden yelled back. "We can't! You need us!" Miriam cursed under her breath, but didn't send them away. She needed every capable hand. Even if those hands were shaking. The battle raged. Cannon crews struggled to reload under flashing Apache fire. Bounty hunters regrouped behind wagons. Settlers fired from behind overturned furniture and hastily stacked crates. Crow shouted, "Stonehawk! They're pushing from the east! They're gonna circle us!" Stonehawk ran toward the homestead roof, scrambling up a ladder. From the high vantage point, he saw it clearly. Rowan wasn't trying to break through. He was trying to encircle the entire valley. A noose tightening. Rowan barked orders from atop his stallion. His men moved like he'd rehearsed this moment for months. Stonehawk felt sickness rise in his chest. This wasn't a raid. This was extermination. Miriam joined him on the roof, panting. "What do you see?" He pointed toward the ridges. "He means to cut off every exit. Then we cut one open." Stonehawk turned to her. And realized she was right. They needed an opening. A path to escape, or reinforcements, or even to scatter and regroup. Stonehawk cupped his hands to his mouth and shouted across the battlefield. "Auntie L! Open the canyon!" The Apache elder heard him and signaled. Two riders galloped toward the canyon trail, lighting smoke pots as they went. Plumes of dark smoke rose, confusing the cavalry's line of sight. Rowan's head snapped toward the canyon. He screamed for his sharpshooters to take position. But Stonehawk saw the weak point. If the right group pushed now, they could break Rowan's line. He turned toward Miriam. Stay with the children. Where are you going? To end this. Stonehawk, no! But he was already gone. He vaulted off the roof and sprinted across the battlefield toward Rowan. Miriam cursed and followed. Behind them, the triplets watched with wide eyes. Caden whispered, He's going to kill Rowan. Leor whispered, Or die trying. Asha swallowed. Then we're not letting him go alone. They exchanged a silent look. And ran. Rowan saw Stonehawk approaching. His smile widened. You finally come to die, Rowan sneered. Stonehawk didn't answer. He drew his knife. Rowan drew his saber. The battlefield slowed. Dust rose in slow motion. Gunshots echoed distant and muffled. Miriam screamed for Stonehawk to stop. The triplets charged after them. Rowan spurred his horse into a charge. And Stonehawk braced himself. Everything would end in the next breath. Rowan's stallion thundered across the cracked earth, hoofs striking sparks. His saber flashed in the sun, a silver arc aimed to cut Stonehawk clean in half. Stonehawk didn't move until the last possible second, waiting as dust curled around him like smoke. Then he stepped aside. Rowan's saber sliced through empty air. Stonehawk caught the stallion's bridle with iron strength, twisting sharply. The horse screamed and reared. Rowan toppled sideways, losing his grip on the reins. Stonehawk grabbed him mid-fall and slammed him into the ground. The impact shook dust straight upward. Rowan gasped, air knocked from his lungs. Around them, the battle seemed to freeze. Cavalry riders slowed. Apache archers lowered their bows. Even the wind paused, as if the land itself watched. Rowan coughed, laughter bubbling up even as blood slid from his lip. You think you win by killing me? He hissed. You don't understand how any of this works. Stonehawk held him down by the collar. You do not decide who dies here. Oh, but I do, Rowan spat. You, the woman, the half-breeds, everyone dies the moment I say. Stonehawk's fist struck him across the jaw. Not to kill, but to silence. Before he could hit again, Miriam reached them, panting, rifle raised. Stop! She shouted. Stonehawk, stop! He looked up at her, breathing shredded, rage trembling through his muscles like lightning held barely in check. He threatened them, Stonehawk said. He tried to kill them. I know, Miriam said. But if you kill him, everything they claimed about you becomes true. Mercy is harder. Stonehawk's jaw clenched. He doesn't deserve mercy. No, Miriam said. But we deserve peace. Her voice, steady, uncompromising, cut deeper than the blade Rowan carried. Stonehawk released Rowan's collar with a hard shove. Rowan rolled over, coughing, struggling to rise. But when he did, he saw something that finally unsettled him. The triplets, standing behind their parents. Asha's eyes unblinking. Caden's fists clenched. Leor clutching a rifle one-handed, sling tight around his wounded arm. 3 children he had tried to destroy. Alive. Standing. Together. Rowan's face twisted. You think this changes anything? Asha stepped forward before anyone could stop her. It changes everything. Her voice was soft, but it struck Rowan like a blow. You wanted us dead, Asha said quietly. We wanted to live. Leor lifted his revolver, not aimed at Rowan, but at the ground between them. We're not going back, he said. Caden's gaze sharpened. We're not leaving. Rowan laughed, ragged, bitter. You're just children. Stonehawk stepped between them, towering like a shadow drawn from the earth itself. No, Stonehawk said. They are the future. Rowan's sneer faltered for the first time. He looked around, and only then realized what he had failed to see. His men were losing. The Apache riders had broken through the flank. The settlers had held the ridge. Danvers and Crow had disabled the second cannon. Rowan's cavalry, confused by smoke signals and flash powder, wavered in their formation. And worst of all, many of his own men looked unsure, their confidence gutted by the brutality of the forged orders Danvers exposed. Rowan stood slowly, brushing dust from his uniform. He drew a second pistol, small, easily hidden. Miriam saw it first. Stone Hawk! But Rowan aimed not at Stone Hawk. Not at Miriam. At Caden. The boy froze. Rowan pulled the trigger. Stone Hawk moved faster than human instinct should allow. He grabbed Caden, shoved him to the ground, and took the bullet through his own shoulder. The gunshot echoed across the valley like a scream. Miriam shrieked. Stone Hawk! The Apache riders roared. Danvers raised her pistol. Crow shouted. But the triplets moved first. All three at once. Caden lunged. Leor aimed. Asha sprinted. The world became motion and sound and dust. Caden tackled Rowan's legs from behind with a force far beyond his small frame, knocking the captain off balance. Leor fired. One shot. It grazed Rowan's sleeve, but the second shot struck his hand, making him drop the gun. Asha leapt forward, grabbing Rowan's coat and yanking him backward just as he reached for a knife. Rowan fell to the ground, breath knocked out of him. The triplets stood over him, breathing hard, chests rising and falling in unison. They had moved like one being with three bodies. Thought like one mind. Reacted like one instinct. People froze at the sight. The Apache riders stared. Settlers stared. Crows stared. Even Danvers stared. Stone Hawk struggled to rise, blood soaking his shoulder. Miriam rushed to him. Don't move! Don't you dare move! He brushed her hand aside gently. I'm fine. You're bleeding. I've bled worse. Asha grabbed Miriam's arm. Mama, Rowan! Miriam turned. Rowan lay on the ground, clutching his shattered hand, staring at the three teenagers with horror. Stone Hawk stepped beside his children, bleeding but unbroken. His voice was low, steady. It ends now. Rowan spat through blood. You think you've won? There are more soldiers coming. Washington. Danvers stepped forward, pistol raised. Washington doesn't know about your cannons. Your forged orders. Your slaughter plans. When they learn, they won't listen to a woman. Rowan growled. They'll listen to me, Crow said coldly, stepping beside her. I was present for everything. Rowan's eyes darted, fear cracking through the arrogance. Stone Hawk knelt beside him, wounded shoulder dripping. My wife died because of men like you, Stone Hawk said quietly. Children died because of men like you. No more. Rowan's breath hitched. You can't kill me. Stone Hawk shook his head. No. But you will answer for what you've done. Crow placed iron cuffs on Rowan's shaking wrists. Danvers recited the charges clearly, loudly. For forging federal orders, for the attempted murder of civilians, for unauthorized use of U.S. artillery, for conspiracy to commit extermination, for abuse of power, for endangering minors, Captain Rowan, you are under arrest. Rowan screamed curses as they dragged him away. No one listened. Because the valley had gone silent. The fighting stopped. The gunfire ceased. Even the horses stilled. Every eye settled on Stone Hawk, bleeding, exhausted, standing beside Miriam and the three children who shouldn't have survived the world they were born into. Miriam whispered, Sit down before you collapse. Stone Hawk swayed. I'm fine. He was not fine. He fell forward. Miriam caught him. Asha cried out. Caden grabbed his father's arm. Leor held him steady with his good hand. Apache riders rushed forward. Settlers gathered in a widening circle. Miriam cupped Stone Hawk's face. Stay with me, stay with us, Stone Hawk. His eyes fluttered. I'm not leaving. Promise, Miriam demanded, voice breaking. I promise, he whispered. Then he went still. But he didn't die. He simply passed out as the valley exhaled for the first time in what felt like decades. It took 3 days for the valley to recover its breath. Rowan was tied, shackled, and escorted to Santa Fe under heavy guard. Danvers went with him, stripped of her uniform by choice, not disgrace. She vowed to testify. Crow returned with settlers, carrying supplies and letters of support for the people of the valley. The Apache stayed, tending to their wounded, rebuilding fires, singing old healing songs that drifted across the field like wind-borne memories. And in the center of it all lay Stonehawk, feverish, restless, recovering in Miriam's cabin. The triplets never left his side. Not once. Asha changed his bandages. Leor ground herbs for pain. Caden sat in the corner sharpening a knife he hoped he'd never use again. Miriam watched over all four of them. Not as separate lives, but as something she had never expected to see. A family. On the fourth morning, Stonehawk opened his eyes. The first thing he saw was Miriam sitting beside him, arms folded, exhaustion softening her features. "You lived," she said. He managed a weak smile. "I promised." The door opened. The triplets rushed to him. Asha hugged him carefully. Caden bowed his head as if ashamed of how scared he'd been. Leor muttered, "Don't ever do that again." Stonehawk looked between them, three faces born from his blood but shaped by Miriam's hands. He placed a hand on each of their shoulders. "You saved me," he said. "We saved each other," Asha whispered. Miriam stood, brushing hair from her face. "We need to talk about what happens now." Stonehawk looked at her. At them. At the valley outside the window. He nodded slowly. "Yes," he said. "We do." "What do you want?" Miriam asked. Stonehawk looked down at the wristband tied around his arm, the beadwork once worn by the woman he lost, and then at the faces of the children born from her. Then he looked at Miriam, the woman who had saved them, saved him, saved the valley. "I want," he said slowly, "what they have always needed." "What's that?" Leor asked. He placed his hand over the triplets' hands. "A future." Miriam met his gaze. "And with who?" Stonehawk held her eyes. "With us," he said. "If you want that." Miriam's throat tightened. She placed her hand atop theirs. "I do." Asha smiled. Caden exhaled. Leor nodded once, trying, and failing, to hide his relief. Stonehawk leaned back against the pillow. For the first time in 14 years he felt at peace. Outside, the valley bustled with life. Children played. Settlers shared meals with Apache families. Smoke curled gently through the air. It was not perfect. It was not easy. But it was a beginning. And beginnings were rare on the frontier. The valley had almost burned. Instead, it became something new. Something worth protecting. Something that belonged to all of them. Together.